Welcome to the channel. Share where you're watching from. We'd love to find out, so drop a comment below, and let's jump into the story. In San Diego, California, Tom noticed a small, round blister pack on the bathroom counter, its silver foil glinting under the bathroom lights. Frowning, he picked it up, turning it over in his hand. The pack didn't look like anything they usually kept in the house. His curiosity sparked as he set it back down and began searching through Amy's makeup drawer, rifling past various bottles and brushes. Hidden behind some old perfume bottles, he found it, a small cardboard package that sent his heart pounding as he read the label. They were birth control pills. Tom blinked, hardly able to believe what he was holding. He'd had a vasectomy after their daughter, Lucy, was born, and they hadn't needed contraception since then. He glanced down the hall, ensuring the kids, Ella, now 8, and Lucy, 6, were still busy playing in the living room. He felt a wave of dread. He didn't want them sensing anything unusual. His mind raced. There was only one reason Amy would need birth control pills, and it didn't involve him. Tom placed the package back precisely where he had found it, closed the drawer, and stepped back, his thoughts in turmoil. He wasn't ready to confront Amy, not without knowing more. If she was hiding something, he'd need to be both patient and strategic to uncover it. Tom left the bathroom, his mind clouded with questions and a plan beginning to form. Whatever was happening, he was determined to get to the bottom of it. Still shaken, he thought back on his years of relying on his observant nature, a skill he'd honed as a project manager in the shipping industry. Years of coordinating schedules, managing shipments, and ensuring everything ran smoothly had taught him to notice details others missed. For a long time, his job had kept him on the road, working late nights, coordinating shipments, and spending evenings alone in hotel rooms. But with a recent transition to a remote position, he'd been home more, closer to Amy and the kids. After finding the birth control pills that morning, however, his sense of comfort at home was shattered. Thoughts of betrayal crept in, and his mind kept circling back to his discovery. Amy had already left for work, leaving him alone to handle the kids' morning routine. Ella, his lively 8-year-old, and Lucy, the curious 6-year-old, were in the back seat, laughing and playing as he drove, blissfully unaware of their father's heavy thoughts. As he dropped Ella off at school and Lucy at daycare, a grim idea took root. He would arrange for a DNA test, just to confirm that he was truly their father. As he dwelled on it, another plan formed in his mind, installing discreet surveillance cameras around the house. It was an extreme measure, but if something was going on, he needed proof. The days that followed were a quiet storm of secret preparations. Tom moved carefully, making sure Amy wouldn't suspect anything. When he found moments alone with Ella or Lucy, he collected small hair samples from their brushes or discreetly swabbed their toothbrushes. He meticulously packaged each sample, sending them to a reputable lab under an alias he created specifically for this purpose. Then, on a night when Amy went out with her friends, he installed 3 small cameras around the house, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in their bedroom. Each device was carefully positioned, nearly invisible, but capable of capturing both sound and high-quality video. With everything in place, Tom felt a strange sense of control return, though tension continued to simmer beneath the surface. He decided to create an alibi for why he'd be out of the house often, mentioning over dinner one evening that he'd be working late the following week. "I've got a few big projects on the line," he said, feigning frustration. "I might be in the office until late some nights." Amy barely reacted, offering a small nod. "That's fine," she replied, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "I'll have time to focus on the house and the girls." Her voice sounded warm, even reassuring, but Tom felt his stomach twist. He forced a smile, trying to mask his own doubts. The anticipation gnawed at him over the next few days. Each morning, he'd linger a moment before leaving the house, his mind already racing with what the cameras might reveal. And each evening, after a long day at the office, he would settle in front of his laptop to review the day's footage, hoping for answers. For the first few days, everything appeared routine. Amy took the kids to school, ran errands, prepared meals, and spent quiet moments reading on the couch. Tom felt a small sense of relief, until Thursday came, and he noticed something strange. As he skimmed through the footage, Tom noticed Amy sitting in the living room, phone in hand, her voice low but tense. He leaned closer to his laptop, straining to hear her words. The sound quality was decent, and, bit by bit, he caught snippets of the conversation. A name came up that made his heart pound: David Walsh, her supervisor. There was something unsettling about the tone of their exchange, a familiarity that went beyond work. Tom couldn't make out every word, but phrases like "next time" and "we have to be careful" seeped through the static, each one tightening the knot in his stomach. That evening, he closed his laptop with a grim resolve. It felt as if he was staring into a side of Amy he'd never seen before, and each passing day chipped away at the trust he had once believed unbreakable. But nothing could have prepared him for what he discovered on Friday. Tom settled in to review the footage late that night. The day had been uneventful until he reached a recording of Amy in the kitchen with the kids. She was helping Lucy with her backpack, laughing as Ella danced around the kitchen, both girls blissfully unaware. Tom's heart softened for a moment, until Amy said something that made him freeze. "All right, girls, after school today, we're going to visit Mr. David for a little while, okay?" The girls cheered, clearly excited, but then Amy lowered her voice, adding, "But remember, girls, this is our secret. Daddy doesn't need to know about our visit, all right?" The girls nodded solemnly, as if entrusted with a treasure, and Lucy whispered, "We won't tell, Mommy." Tom felt his world spin. Why would Amy ask the kids to keep secrets from him? And what reason did she have for meeting David with their children? Anger flared within him, a fierce, raw sensation that nearly drove him to confront her right then. Tom sat there, stunned, his pulse thundering in his ears as the weight of Amy's words sank in. His mind raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. Losing control now would only ruin his chance to truly understand what was happening. He took a deep breath and closed the laptop, but the sense of dread remained. He knew the DNA test results were due soon, and those results could shatter whatever remained of the life he thought he'd built with Amy. That night, Tom came home later than usual. The kids were already asleep, and Amy was on the couch, casually scrolling through her phone. She looked up with a tired smile as he walked in. "Long day?" she asked, her voice light and unconcerned. "Yeah, another late one," he replied, forcing a smile and leaning down to kiss her cheek. The gesture felt hollow, a formality he struggled to keep up as he fought the urge to pull away. They talked about small things, keeping the routine of a regular evening. But as the house fell silent and everyone went to bed, Tom lay awake, thoughts churning. The secrets, the lies, the hidden meetings, they gnawed at him, leaving him restless. At around 3 a.m., he couldn't stand it any longer. Quietly, he slipped out of bed and saw Amy's phone on her nightstand. His hands shook as he picked it up and went to the bathroom, closing the door softly behind him. He'd never gone through her phone before, it was something they both respected. But the trust he'd once cherished was now buried under a mountain of doubt. He took a breath, tapped the screen, and began trying passwords. After a few wrong attempts, he tried Ella's birthdate, and the screen unlocked. His heart pounding, he went to her messages and scrolled through her contacts, finding a conversation with David. As he opened the thread, the words on the screen hit him like a physical blow. At first, it seemed ordinary, work-related messages about schedules and updates. But then, tucked in between, were other messages, "Looking forward to our time tomorrow, same place," and "Miss you." Tom's stomach tightened as he read, feeling each message slice deeper. It was the last one, however, that made his blood run cold. "I know it's hard, but we need to keep things smooth for now. Let's be patient." Tom felt the room tilt as he reread the messages, disbelief mingling with anger. This wasn't a fleeting affair, it was something deeper, more deliberate. He stared at the screen, feeling betrayed and nauseated. His hand shaking, he took out his phone and captured screenshots of each incriminating message. His mind swirled in chaos, but he moved methodically, securing every piece of evidence he'd need. After carefully placing Amy's phone back on the nightstand, he returned to bed, his mind numb as he lay next to her, a stranger who had been by his side for years. Sleep evaded him, leaving him alone with his thoughts until dawn. The following morning, he looked in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. Dark circles ringed his eyes, his face pale and tense. During breakfast, Amy glanced at him, a hint of concern in her eyes. "You look exhausted, Tom. Are you feeling okay?" she asked, reaching out to touch his arm. Forcing a small smile, he replied, "Just a rough week. Not sleeping well." Amy seemed to accept this, but he noticed her watching him throughout the weekend, sensing the distance he was barely able to hide. By Sunday night, he was counting the hours until he could leave the house for work, where he could finally breathe. On Monday morning, his phone buzzed with an alert just before noon. The email he'd been dreading had arrived, the DNA test results. Heart pounding, he opened it, and there it was, cold, undeniable, probability of paternity, 0%. Tom's world dropped away. Neither Ella nor Lucy was his biological child. He had been raising another man's children, unknowingly playing a role in someone else's life. And with Amy's secretive messages to David, the truth was clear. David Walsh wasn't just Amy's supervisor, he was likely the father of the children Tom had loved as his own for years. Tom took a shaky breath, rage and heartbreak mingling in his chest. There would be no smooth transition, no future built on Amy's lies. He was done. He took the rest of the day off, claiming a family emergency, and immediately called Sarah Mitchell, a highly regarded family lawyer he'd met during a corporate networking event years ago. She'd been a trusted resource then, and now he was turning to her for something deeply personal. Sarah's office was professional and welcoming, with framed diplomas and accolades on the walls. She greeted him warmly, though her face grew serious as he shared his story, the birth control pills, the surveillance footage, the DNA results that had unraveled his life. Sarah listened attentively, her expression focused, letting him vent his shock and frustration without interruption. When he finished, she leaned back thoughtfully. "Tom, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said, her tone compassionate. "This is betrayal on a profound level, both emotionally and legally. But before we move forward, you'll need to approach this carefully. Divorce cases involving infidelity and children can be extremely complex, and we want to make sure you come out of this protected." Tom clenched his jaw, nodding. "I just can't keep living in this lie, Sarah. She deceived me, and now I'm raising someone else's children. I don't even know how often they're with David when I'm not around." Sarah nodded, her gaze steady. "I understand. And if we play this right, we can make sure the truth is on record. Here's what we'll do: start gathering all your financial records, account statements, property deeds, anything that documents your assets. We'll need everything lined up to keep this as clean as possible." Tom's anger sharpened into resolve. "I don't want her taking more than she deserves. She's lied to me for years." "We'll work on that," Sarah assured him. "But just be aware that, legally, the court may still consider the kids' well-being a priority, regardless of their biological father. You'll need to be prepared for that, especially if it comes down to custody." Tom met her gaze, his eyes fierce. "I want David involved. I want both of them to answer for what they've done." Sarah's eyes held a glint of determination. "Then let's build our case. Don't confront Amy yet, let her think everything is normal. In the meantime, I'll start drafting the paperwork, and we'll proceed strategically. That way, when it's time, you'll be ready." As Tom left Sarah's office, he felt a sense of focus taking root within him. Sarah's plan gave him a way forward, a way to reclaim his life from the ashes of Amy's lies. In the days that followed, Tom set about securing his finances and preparing for the legal battle ahead. Under Sarah's guidance, he documented every financial detail, ensuring that his assets were protected. Together, they gathered evidence of Amy's deceit, the DNA results, the surveillance recordings, and the incriminating messages from David. Sarah was quick to prepare a potential claim for compensation, arguing that Tom had unknowingly raised children who were not biologically his. With each piece in place, Tom's resolve hardened. He knew the moment was approaching when Amy would be served with the divorce papers. The night he'd been preparing for finally arrived. Tom found Amy relaxing on the couch, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. Holding the documents, he stepped into the living room. "Amy," he said, his voice steady, "we need to talk." She looked up, surprised to see the serious look on his face. As her eyes drifted to the papers in his hand, her expression changed from confusion to panic. She snatched the documents, scanning the pages with wide eyes. "Tom, what is this?" she stammered, her voice wavering. He crossed his arms, keeping his voice calm but firm. "It's exactly what it looks like, Amy. I know everything." Her face paled, and she tried to regain her composure. "You're overreacting. Think of the girls, Tom. They're your daughters." He shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "No, Amy. You lied to me, and now you want to use the kids to keep me here. I won't be manipulated anymore." Desperation flickered in her eyes. "But you've raised them, loved them. How could you just walk away?" Tom's expression hardened. "I'm walking away from you, from the lies. I've done nothing wrong, and I won't let you twist this." With those final words, he turned and left the room. He felt an ache in his chest, but the relief of finally confronting her was undeniable. As Tom left the house, he drove to a quiet overlook on the outskirts of town, needing a moment to gather his thoughts. He pulled out his laptop, connecting to the live feed from the cameras he'd installed weeks earlier. Amy was pacing the kitchen, her face etched with anger and panic as she clutched her phone. "David," she said, her voice trembling. "He found out everything. He just served me with the divorce papers. It's all falling apart faster than we planned." Tom's grip tightened on the laptop as he listened to her frantic words. She continued, her tone bitter and accusing. "You said we'd have time, that you'd handle everything with your ex so we could move forward. But now Tom's filing first, and he knows everything. If you just followed through on our plan." Tom closed his laptop, the final piece of the puzzle snapping into place. Her affair with David hadn't just been a betrayal, it was a calculated plan to dismantle their marriage and manipulate him into supporting children who weren't his. But now, he had the upper hand, and he wouldn't let her get away with it. In the following weeks, Sarah's legal expertise guided him through a meticulous divorce process. She ensured that Tom's assets were protected, documenting every piece of evidence that painted a clear picture of Amy's deceit. When the court finally reviewed the case, the judge ruled in Tom's favor, absolving him of any financial responsibility to Amy or her children. The evidence, the DNA tests, the recordings, and the messages, was indisputable. Amy's social circle soon learned the truth as well. Word spread quickly, and she found herself isolated, her reputation shattered by the revelations. As the divorce proceedings wrapped up, Tom walked out of the courtroom with a sense of freedom he hadn't felt in years. Sarah had been instrumental, helping him navigate every twist and turn, and now he was ready to start anew. In the weeks that followed, Tom moved into a new home, focusing on his career and beginning to rebuild his life. Sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sun set over the San Diego skyline, he felt a deep sense of peace. It was the start of a new chapter, one he could build on his own terms, free from the weight of deception and betrayal. And as he watched the fading light, he knew he was ready to face the future with strength and clarity, finally unburdened and resilient.